The drums of the New Yam festival were beating loud and fast, usually a sound of joy in the village of Umu-Oye. But today, the drums seemed to stop all at once. The music died down. The dancing feet of the elders froze in the dust. Hundreds of eyes were wide open, staring at one person standing in the middle of the village square. It was Adanna. Adanna, the girl who used to be as slender as a reed. Adanna, the girl who used to hide in oversized hoodies even under the hot African sun. But now, she stood there in a tight, shiny blue dress that looked like it was about to burst. She was crying, her hands trembling as she tried to cover her chest. But she couldn't. It wasn't just that she had curves now. It was that they were moving. Her chest was heaving up and down, not with breath, but with a strange, heavy rhythm, like a heart beating on the outside of her body. The beautiful curves she had prayed for were swelling bigger by the second, stretching the fabric of her expensive dress until, RIP. The sound of tearing cloth echoed through the silent square. Adanna, her mother screamed from the crowd, dropping her basket of kola nuts. "What have you done to yourself?" Adanna fell to her knees in the red dust, sobbing. "I just wanted to be beautiful. I just wanted them to stop laughing." The village elders looked away in shame, and the children whispered. But nobody moved to help her. They were too afraid. Because what Adanna had done to get those curves wasn't natural. It wasn't surgery, and it wasn't exercise. It was something far older, and far more dangerous. To understand how Adanna ended up kneeling in the dust with a torn dress and a heavy secret, we have to go back 3 weeks. It started on a Tuesday at City High School. Adanna was 16 years old, smart, and kind, but nobody cared about that. In her modern world, where everyone posted pictures on Instagram and TikTok, looks were everything. Adanna stood by her locker, trying to fix her school uniform. The white shirt hung loose on her frame. She pulled at it, trying to make it look better, but it was no use. "Hey, Gecko." Adanna froze. She knew that voice. It was Chike, the loudest boy in class. He walked past with his friends, laughing. "Careful, Adanna," Chike teased, pointing at a strong gust of wind blowing through the hallway. "If you don't put some stones in your pocket, the wind might blow you away. You are just too flat." The whole hallway erupted in laughter. Even some of the girls laughed. Adanna felt her face burn with shame. She looked down at her chest. It was true. She was flat. As flat as the chalkboard in Mr. Okun's class. Then came Nneka. Nneka was the most popular girl in school. She had the shape that everyone wanted, the figure-8 shape that African aunties always praised. Nneka flipped her long braids and smirked at Adanna. "Don't worry, Adanna," Nneka said, her voice sweet like poisoned honey. "Maybe if you eat enough fufu and sleep for 10 years, you might grow a little. But for now, well, at least you can fit through narrow fences." Adanna didn't answer. She grabbed her bag and ran. She ran past the school gates, past the busy market where women sold pepper and dried fish, and didn't stop until she reached her grandmother's house on the edge of town. Grandma Chioma was sitting on her porch, peeling oranges. She saw Adanna's tear-stained face and sighed. "They are laughing again, Nne." Grandma asked gently. "I hate it, Mama." Adanna cried, sitting on the mat. "I look like a boy. Chike called me a gecko. I want to look like Nneka. I want to be a woman." Grandma Chioma cut a piece of orange and handed it to her. "You are a woman, Adanna. Beauty is not just about what is big and what is small. The mango is sweet, but the sugarcane is sweet too. They look different, but both are good. I don't want to be sugarcane." Adanna shouted, throwing her hands up. "I want to be the mango. I want curves, Mama. Fast." Grandma's face grew serious. "Be careful what you wish for, my child. Patience is a tree with bitter roots, but sweet fruit. Haste is a fire that burns the house down. Adanna ignored her. She was tired of patience. She went to her room and opened her phone. She searched for how to get calves fast. She saw videos of surgeries, pills, and creams. But they were all too expensive. She didn't have thousands of naira. She needed a miracle. That evening, Adanna went to the river to fetch water, a chore she usually hated. The sun was setting, painting the sky in orange and purple. Down by the riverbank, away from the other girls washing clothes, she saw a woman she had never spoken to before. It was Mma Zira. People in the village called Mma Zira the mud lady. She lived in a small hut made of clay and thatch, far from the electric poles and paved roads. They said she knew the secrets of the earth. They said she could mold anything out of clay, pots, statues, and maybe other things. Adanna watched Mma Zira molding a pot. Her hands moved fast, smoothing the wet mud. "You have a heavy heart, child," Mma Zira said, without looking up. Her voice sounded like dry leaves crunching. Adanna stepped closer. "Can you help me?" Mma Zira stopped. She looked at Adanna with eyes that seemed milky and old. "Help you do what?" "I want to change," Adanna whispered, pointing to her chest. "I want to be big. Beautiful. Like the other girls." Mma Zira laughed, a low, rasping sound. "You want to carry the weight of a woman before your bones are ready. The river gives, but the river takes." "I don't care," Adanna said, desperate. "I will do anything." Mma Zira stared at her for a long time. Then, she reached into a dark, wooden bowl beside her. She pulled out a handful of strange, shimmering mud. It wasn't brown like normal mud. It was gray, with tiny specks of gold that sparkled in the twilight. "This is not ordinary clay," Mma Zira whispered. "This is Umu-Oye, the clay of the river goddess. It is used to mold the statues of beauty for the shrines. Whatever it touches, it swells. It grows to mimic life." Adanna's eyes went wide. "Can I use it?" "It is a secret method," Mma Zira warned. "You must mix this clay with the morning dew. Rub it on your chest before you sleep. But listen to me, child, this is the most important part." Adanna leaned in, her heart pounding. "You must wash it off exactly when the moon is highest in the sky. Do not let it dry completely on your skin. If you leave it too long, the clay will forget it is clay. It will think it is flesh. And it will not stop growing." "I understand," Adanna said quickly, snatching the small wrap of clay. "Wash it off when the moon is high." "Thank you, Mma Zira." "Wait," the old woman called out, but Adanna was already running up the path, clutching the magical clay to her chest. She didn't hear Mma Zira's final words. "The clay is jealous. It does not like to be ignored." That night, Adanna waited until her parents were asleep. The house was quiet, except for the humming of the refrigerator and the chirping of crickets outside. She went to the bathroom and mixed the shimmering grey clay in a small bowl. It smelled strange, like rain on hot asphalt and sweet flowers. She looked in the mirror one last time at her flat chest. "Goodbye, world Gecko," she whispered. She applied the thick, cool paste. It felt amazing. It tingled on her skin, warm and soothing. Immediately, she felt a difference. It felt heavy, promising. She checked the time. It was 10 p.m. The moon would be highest around midnight. "I have 2 hours," she told herself. "I will just lie down and close my eyes for a few minutes. I won't sleep." Adanna lay on her bed, smiling. She imagined walking into school the next day. She imagined Chike's jaw dropping. She imagined Nneka being jealous. The tingling sensation was like a lullaby. It was so comfortable. So warm. Her eyelids grew heavy. Just 5 minutes, she thought. Just 5 minutes. But Adanna didn't wake up in 5 minutes. She woke up to the sound of a rooster crowing. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Adanna's eyes snapped open. Sunlight was streaming through her window. The morning birds were singing. Panic hit her like a cold bucket of water. No, she gasped. No, no, no. It's morning. She scrambled out of bed, but as she moved, she lost her balance and fell forward. She felt incredibly heavy. Her chest felt like she was carrying 2 bags of cement. She dragged herself to the mirror and screamed. The clay was gone. Or rather, it wasn't on top of her skin anymore. It had become her skin. Her chest was huge. It was curvy, yes. It was the shape she had dreamed of, even bigger than Nneka's. But the skin looked strange. It was smooth and shiny, almost like polished stone. I have to wash it off, she cried. She ran to the bathroom and turned on the shower. She grabbed the sponge and scrubbed. She scrubbed until her skin turned red, but the size didn't go down. In fact, as the water hit her, she felt a strange throbbing. Thump thump. Thump thump. The calves were pulsing. They were reacting to the water. They seemed to drink it in. Adanna watched in horror as her chest swelled slightly more, right before her eyes. The clay hadn't just hardened, it was alive. And it was hungry. Adanna. Are you awake? Her mother called from the kitchen. Get dressed. We are late for the New Yam festival. Adanna stared at the door, her heart racing. She couldn't let them see her like this. But she couldn't hide it either. She grabbed her biggest, darkest blue dress, the one she bought for special occasions, and forced it on. It was tight. Painfully tight. She looked in the mirror. She looked like a woman now. A very voluptuous woman. But inside, she felt like she was made of stone and magic. I can fix this, she whispered, sweating. I just need to find Mma Zira at the festival. She will know the antidote. But as Adanna stepped out of her room, she felt a sharp twinge. The clay shifted against her ribs, heavy and hard. It wasn't done growing. And the festival had just begun. Walking from her house to the village square felt like walking through fire. The sun was high and bright, and the heat was making the strange skin on Adanna's chest throb painfully. Every step sent a heavy jolt through her body, like she was carrying a backpack filled with rocks, but the backpack was attached to her front. Her parents walked ahead, chatting happily about the yam harvest. They hadn't really looked at her yet. In the rush to leave, Adanna had thrown a large shawl over her shoulders, covering her upper body. She told her mother she was feeling cold, even though sweat was trickling down her back. Hurry up, Adanna, her father called back, adjusting his cap. The masquerades will be coming out soon. Adanna nodded, biting her lip. The clay felt feverishly hot. It was drinking up the moisture from her body. Her throat was parched, but she was afraid to drink water. The shower had made it grow. Would drinking water make it worse? They arrived at the square. It was crowded and loud. The smell of roasted corn and spicy goat meat filled the air. Children were running around in their best clothes, and the elders sat under the big iroko tree, fanning themselves. Adanna tried to make herself small, hiding behind a group of women selling beads. She scanned the crowd for Mma Zira. Where are you? She thought desperately. Please be here. Well, if it isn't the wall Gecko. Adanna's stomach dropped. She knew that laugh. She turned slowly to see Chike standing there with his friends. Nneka was with them, looking perfect in a fitted pink dress that showed off her famous figure. Why are you wearing a blanket in this heat? Nneka asked, raising an eyebrow. Are you hiding another flat tire? The boys laughed. Usually, this would have made Adanna cry. But today, she didn't feel shame. She felt terror. The pulsing in her chest was getting faster. Thump thump thump. It was reacting to her emotions. The more upset she got, the hotter it became. "Leave me alone," Adanna whispered, her voice trembling. "Come on, show us your outfit," Jack teased, reaching out to tug at her shawl. "No. Don't touch me," Adanna shrieked, jumping back. The sharpness of her voice made people turn and look. Her mother stopped talking to a neighbor and looked over. "Adanna, is everything okay?" I need to go," Adanna stammered. She turned to run, but the weight on her chest threw her off balance. She stumbled. Jack, thinking it was a game, grabbed the edge of her shawl. "Let's see what you're hiding." He pulled. The shawl slipped off her shoulders. For a second, there was silence. Jack's eyes went wide. Nneka's mouth dropped open. The boys stopped laughing. Adanna stood there in her tight blue dress. The curves were undeniable. They were massive, defying gravity, pushing against the fabric of her dress like they wanted to break free. She looked like a grown woman, a goddess even, but there was something wrong. The shape was too perfect, too hard, too sculpted. "Adanna," Nneka whispered, her jealousy replaced by confusion. "How?" Then, the pain hit Adanna. A sharp, tearing pain. The clay surged. Rip. The sound we heard at the beginning of the story happened then. The dress tore down the front. The crowd gasped. Adanna fell to her knees, as we saw before, crying in the dust. Her mother rushed forward, wrapping the shawl back around her, her face filled with horror. "Adanna. My child. What is this?" "Your skin, it feels like stone." "It hurts, Mama," Adanna sobbed. "It feels heavy." The village elders gathered around. One of them, Papa Obi, looked closely at her chest. He touched the skin on her collarbone where the grayish tint was starting to spread. "This is not flesh," Papa Obi said, his voice grave. "This is Ulomiri, the clay of the river." He looked around the square with fear in his eyes. "Who gave this to you?" Adanna couldn't speak. She just pointed toward the edge of the forest, toward the river path. "Mma Zira," her mother whispered. "Go," Papa Obi commanded, banging his walking stick on the ground. "Take her to the mud lady before the curse sets. If that clay hardens fully, she will never move again." Adanna's father scooped her up. He was a strong farmer, but he groaned under the weight. Adanna felt heavier than a sack of yams. "Hold on, Adanna," he panted, running toward the forest path. Her mother ran beside them, praying loudly. They reached Mma Zira's hut just as the sun began to dip, casting long, scary shadows through the trees. The hut was quiet. The pots outside were dry. "Mma Zira, come out," Adanna's father shouted, kicking the door open. The hut was empty. No, not empty. In the corner, sitting on a mat, was a small statue. It looked exactly like Mma Zira, frozen in the middle of a laugh. She is gone," Adanna's mother wept. "We are too late." "No," a voice rasped from behind them. They spun around. Mma Zira stepped out of the shadows of the forest. She looked tired, her skin gray and cracking like dry earth. "I am not gone yet," Mma Zira said. "But the river is calling its children home." She looked at Adanna, who was lying on the grass, unable to sit up because of the weight. The grey collar had spread up her neck and was creeping down her arms. Her fingers felt stiff, like she was wearing thick gloves. "You slept," Mma Zira said simply. "You let the clay dream." "I'm sorry," Adanna cried. "Please take it off. I don't want to be curvy anymore. I just want to be me." Mma Zira shook her head. "I cannot scrape it off. It has bonded with your spirit. The clay thinks you are a shrine statue. It wants to freeze you in perfection forever. It thinks it is doing you a favor. Is there no cure? Adanna's father asked, his voice breaking. I will pay you anything. I will give you all my yams. Mma Zira looked at the sky. The moon was starting to rise, faint and pale. There is one way, Mma Zira said. But it is dangerous. The river goddess is angry because her sacred clay was used for vanity, not worship. You must go to the source. You must go to the great Iroko tree that grows in the middle of the river. The spirit tree. Adanna's mother gasped. But no one goes there at night. She must, Mma Zira said sternly. She must stand in the river, embrace the tree, and speak the truth. Not the truth she tells her friends, or her parents. The truth she hides in her heart. If the goddess believes her, the clay will melt. If she lies, she will become part of the tree forever. Adanna struggled to her feet. Her legs felt like tree trunks. She couldn't feel her toes anymore. I will go. You must go alone, Mma Zira warned. If anyone helps you, the clay will take them too. Adanna looked at her parents. She saw the love and fear in their eyes. She realized then how silly she had been. She had wanted to change her body to please people like Gecko and Nneka, people who didn't love her. And now, she might lose the people who actually did. I love you, Mama. I love you, Papa, she said. Her voice sounded different now, hollow, like it was coming from inside a cave. She turned and began to walk into the forest, toward the river. Thud. 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 Her footsteps were heavy, leaving deep prints in the soil. The forest was dark. Crickets chirped, but they sounded like they were mocking her. Wall Gecko. Wall Gecko. She reached the riverbank. The water was black and cold. In the middle of the river stood the great Iroko tree, its roots twisted like giant snakes. Adanna stepped into the water. It was freezing. She expected the cold to hurt, but she didn't feel it. Her legs were too far gone. She waded deeper, the water rising to her waist. The current pushed against her, but she was so heavy that she stood firm like a rock. She reached the tree and wrapped her stiff arms around the rough bark. River goddess, she shouted. I am here. I am sorry. Silence. Only the wind howled. Please, she cried. I don't want to be beautiful. I just want to be free. Suddenly, the water around her began to bubble. The tree roots shifted, tightening around her legs. You lie, a voice whispered. It didn't come from the air. It came from the clay on her chest. Adanna looked down in horror. The curves on her chest were moving, forming a face. A mud face. It had her eyes. You still want it, the clay face whispered. You still want them to look at you. You love the attention. No. Adanna screamed. Admit it, the clay hissed, the grey stiffness spreading rapidly up to her chin. Stay with me. We can be beautiful forever. Just stop fighting. Stop moving. Adanna tried to pull away from the tree, but she couldn't. Her arms were fused to the bark. The grey stone was covering her mouth now. She tried to scream, but only a muffled sound came out. She was trapped. Alone in the dark river, half girl, half statue, with the magical clay covering her face, sealing her breath. And then, she heard a splash. Someone was coming into the river. Adanna tried to turn her head, but her neck was rigid. She could only move her eyes. She saw a figure wading through the water toward her. It wasn't her father. It wasn't Mma Zira. It was Nneka. Nneka was holding a lantern, her face pale with terror. She had followed Adanna. Adanna. Nneka called out, her voice shaking. Oh my God. Adanna, give me your hand. Nneka reached out to grab Adanna's arm. No. Adanna tried to scream behind the layer of clay. Don't touch me. Mma Zira said it would take you too. But Nneka didn't hear the silent scream. Her fingers brushed against Adanna's stone-cold shoulder. Immediately, Nneka gasped. The lantern fell into the water with a hiss. I can't move my hand, Nneka whispered, her eyes wide. The grey clay on Adanna's shoulder rippled like a snake and jumped onto Nneka's fingers. It had found a new victim. Nneka shrieked as the grey clay coiled around her wrist. It was fast, much faster than it had been on Adanna. It moved like a living vine, hardening instantly. Within seconds, Nneka's left hand and forearm were turned into smooth, grey stone. Get it off. Get it off. Nneka screamed, splashing the dark water. She tried to pull her hand away, but the clay was heavy, dragging her down. It likes you, the voice from Adanna's chest whispered. It sounded delighted. 2 statues are better than 1. 1 for the morning shrine, 1 for the night. Adanna watched in horror. She couldn't speak, her mouth half covered by the clay, but her mind was racing. This was her fault. Her vanity, her impatience, it had brought this curse upon them. And now, Nneka, the girl who had everything, was going to pay the price too. Nneka was sobbing now, the water swelling around her waist. Adanna, please. I came to help you. I saw you leave the village. I didn't want you to die. Adanna's heart skipped a beat. Nneka had come to help. The same Nneka who called her wall Gecko. The clay on Adanna's face tightened. She is lying, the clay hissed. She hates you. She mocks you. Let her turn to stone. Then you will finally be the more beautiful one. It was a tempting thought. For a split second, a dark part of Adanna listened. If Nneka was a statue, no one would compare Adanna to her ever again. But then Adanna looked at Nneka's face. She didn't see a mean queen bee. She saw a terrified 16-year-old girl, shaking in a cold river, crying for her mother. No, Adanna thought. This isn't beauty. This is hate. She had to speak. Mma Zira said the clay would melt if she spoke the truth, the deep truth hidden in her heart. She had tried before, saying she wanted to be free, but that wasn't the whole truth. Adanna closed her eyes. She focused all her energy on her mouth. She pushed against the stiff, grey stone. She pushed with her jaw, with her tongue, with her soul. Crack! A tiny hairline fracture appeared on the clay covering her lips. Adanna groaned. Quiet, the clay commanded, squeezing her ribs. I was jealous. Adanna shouted, the clay around her mouth shattering into dust. Nneka stopped struggling and looked at her. I wanted to be you, Nneka. Adanna cried, her voice raw and loud over the rushing water. I didn't just want curves. I wanted your power. I thought if I looked like you, I would matter. I thought I was nothing because I was small. The water around the Iroko tree began to churn violently. The clay on Adanna's chest hissed like steam. But I was wrong. Adanna continued, tears mixing with the river water on her face. I am not nothing. I am Adanna. I am smart. I am kind. And I don't need to weigh 1,000 pounds to be a heavy person in this world. The clay shrieked, a sound like grinding rocks. Large chunks of grey stone fell off Adanna's arms and splashed into the river. She could move her fingers. Nneka! Adanna yelled, reaching out with her newly freed hand. You have to speak too. Why are you here? Why did you really follow me? Nneka was shivering, the clay now up to her elbow. I don't know. Tell the truth. Adanna begged. The river goddess is listening. Nneka looked at her stone arm, then at Adanna. She took a deep breath. Because I'm scared. Nneka screamed. I bully you because I'm scared that if I'm not the prettiest, I'm nobody. My curves are all I have. Without them, I'm just empty. Boom. Thunder cracked overhead, shaking the very roots of the Iroko tree. A brilliant white light flashed from the center of the tree, blinding them for a moment. The water of the river suddenly grew warm. The clay on Adanna's chest and Nneka's arm didn't just break, it dissolved. It turned back into harmless, soft river mud, washing away in the current. Adanna gasped, filling her lungs with air. Her chest felt light. Wonderfully, beautifully light. She looked down. The massive, throbbing curves were gone. Her blue dress hung loosely on her frame again. She was flat. She was small. And she had never felt so happy. It's gone, Nneka whispered, rubbing her arm. The gray skin was back to its rich, brown color. The two girls stood in the river, staring at each other. They were soaked, exhausted, and shivering, but the heavy weight was gone. Adanna waded over to Nneka. She didn't know if she should hug her or run away. But Nneka made the first move. She reached out and took Adanna's hand, gently this time. You saved me, Nneka said softly. Even after everything I said to you. You saved me too, Adanna replied. If you hadn't come, I would have been a statue forever. They walked out of the river together, climbing up the muddy bank. The forest didn't seem so scary anymore. The crickets were just crickets. When they got back to the village, the moon was high and full. Adanna's parents were waiting by Mma Zira's hut, weeping. When they saw Adanna walking out of the trees, wet, muddy, and flat-chested, they screamed with joy. Adanna! Her mother ran and scooped her up in a hug that nearly crushed her ribs. You are back. You are you. I am me, Mama, Adanna smiled, burying her face in her mother's wrapper. And that is enough. The next day at school, the hallway was buzzing with rumors about what had happened at the festival. When Adanna walked in, the hallway went silent. She was wearing her uniform. It was loose. It didn't fit perfectly. She looked exactly the same as she did 3 days ago. But she walked differently. She walked with her head high. She walked like she was carrying a crown, not a burden. Chike was standing by the lockers. He opened his mouth to make a joke, to call her wall Gecko. But then Nneka stepped up beside Adanna. Nneka put an arm around Adanna's shoulder and glared at Chike. Say one word, Chike, Nneka warned, her voice sharp as a knife, and you will see the real trouble. Chike closed his mouth and looked away. Adanna looked at Nneka and smiled. Nneka smiled back. It wasn't a smirk. It was a real smile. They walked down the hall together. Adanna realized that Grandma Chioma was right. The mango is sweet, and the sugarcane is sweet. They are different, but both have their place in the sun. And as Adanna laughed at something Nneka said, she knew she would never wish to be anyone else ever again.